And the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome. How are you today, Mr. Harris?
I am very well today, Mr. Solomon, though I hope you did not have the opportunity or the unfortunate misfortune of being anywhere near outside today.
Well, it was very hot.
Oh my God, it was surface of the sun hot today. It was a different kind of sun
Surface
today.
of the sun.
It was very, very, very warm today. And I also noted it was like a cloudless day. So the sun had no interruption.
I will have you know, Mr. Harris, that I do have experience in construction.
Oh, yes, you do. And in farming.
Yes.
So the sun doesn't bother you at all, does it?
Well, I would say this. I'm a little bit immune to it. I'm used to it.
Okay.
I get all geared up. Your face is wrapped up in T-shirts and long sleeves, etc. But no, today was an office day. I didn't go out.
No. Well, I only like the sun if I'm near water, either in it or feeling the breeze blow off the ocean, so I'm somewhat cool.
Gotcha.
You know, to be running around doing errands downtown in 800-degree weather. So it felt like
96 degrees.
The car said it was 91 degrees outside, but it felt a lot hotter than that. I suspect with the added humidity, it could have been an over 100-degree day. But it was very, very warm today. But I trust you had a good day nonetheless.
I did have a good day. I had a very enjoyable day. Productive.
Yes.
Need more days like that. And you can see I have a little bit more energy today, Mr. Harris. You may have noted.
I may have noticed. I certainly did notice. Not only are you well rested, but speaking of sunshine, you look like a ray of sunshine.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Orange, very happy and
thank you.
Alive shirt you're wearing.
Thank you. I can tell you they must have had a referendum in Italy also.
They might. Well, I tell you, they certainly did.
Apparently
they certainly did. The sun, I think that was the reason why the sun came out today so bright.
Because there was smoking over there.
They were certainly smoking over there.
Yeah.
Today marked to my colleague's point, today certainly marked an emotional and celebratory day today for at least 1.4 billion Catholics around the globe, as white smoke bellowed from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, prompting waves of cheers in St. Andrew's Square, signaling to the world that the 267th Pope has been determined. Following 2 days of conclave, the cardinal electors of the Sistine Chapel in Rome today selected Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost of the United States, making him the first American to be named Pope, and of course joining the very distinguished line of some 267. He makes 267 popes in history. He hails from the United States, specifically the state of Illinois, but it's also noted that he has a Peruvian nationality, speaks fluent Spanish, fluent Italian, and of course English.
It was a little bit of Spanish. Let's put it this way. A little bit of Latin in there.
Yes.
Or a lot of Latin.
I think certainly to be Pope, speaking Latin is a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever else language you speak, Latin you must know.
Well, see, I was going on the Spanish side, but then you actually threw in the literal Latin.
Yes. So, yes, the new Pope, whose name will be Pope Leo the 14th.
Oh, wow.
I like him already. I'm a Leo, just astrology, if you're referring to it. But Pope Leo the 14th. I didn't know there were 13 other Leos in the whole papal order. But
sounds like a powerful name, right?
It does sound like a very powerful name. He looks very young in the face, very bright, and again,
like
clearly
Leo.
Like a Leo, exactly. Speaking of sunshine,
Real sunshine.
in his first public address today, he encouraged peace and unity in the world, but in particular amongst believers. So if you are Catholic today, I'm sure you already know and have already started to join in the global celebrations that we do have, again, a new pope following 2 days of private behind the locked door meetings of, I think it was 133 cardinals locked in a room, no phone, no TV, locked away from the outside world. You know, as we said.
How many days?
Puffing away smoke in the chapel. We know they were doing it because it came out the chimney.
Yeah, you're right.
So, 133 cardinals participated in the, again, what they call conclave. And I only know that because there was a Netflix movie called Conclave, which
why did I know you were going to say that, Mr. Harris?
That was a really good show. I liked it.
It's like 90% of people, how do we learn? We watch movies,
We
of
watch
course.
movies, and they tell us all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, let's just hope they were accurate.
That's
Actually,
right.
you know, funny you say this because we were having a discussion in my car this morning,
Uh-huh.
and the issue came up. What was it? What was the issue?
Oh, no.
I think it was a case of, you know, the amount of time that the smoke was burning.
Yes.
Like, for example, is that black smoke burning all the time, or was it only every now and then? You know, that kind of a question mark.
Oh, that was.
So I went looking it up.
Oh, you found it? Okay, good. I don't have to.
Because I was
educate
under
you.
the, I was
I
under
learned
the,
it from the movie too, but I'll let you talk. I'll let you tell everybody.
but you learned it from the movie.
I did learn it from the movie though.
Okay.
I didn't know it before.
So I looked it up, and it was the case, first of all, that when selecting a pope during a conclave, the black or white smoke is called fumata.
Fumata.
Fumata.
Here you go. Is that Italian or Latin?
That's Latin, right?
Latin. Okay.
So, and interesting enough, again, this is why I talked about the Spanish, the Latin language, etc., because in Spanish you say fumo, right? You know, smoke.
Okay.
Okay, like don't fumar, don't
Right.
no fumando. So anyway, fumata signals the outcome of each voting session. I know everybody's just dying to hear this, you know.
They are.
Okay, great. Let's share it with him.
Everybody who's not in that 1.4 billion number.
Yeah. How often do they vote? Cardinals vote up to 4 times per day, 2 votes in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. I did not know this.
I did not know this either.
You see, you didn't get
movie-
that from the Netflix
The,
movie.
the movie did not say that part.
I know it. This is so much more interesting.
Much, much more.
After each morning and after an afternoon session, the ballots are burned. When does the smoke come? Twice a day. Smoke is released once after the morning session and once after the afternoon session. Black smoke means no pope has been elected. Bracket, no one has reached the required 2/3 majority. So again, 2/3 majority in order to get a pope. A bit like the major important decisions in Parliament.
Yes.
Like removal of a premier or
Yes, a
something.
no confidence motion requires 2/3 majority vote.
Correct. Whereas the other ones might simply be a majority. So majority,
Of those who
a motion or a simple passing of the bill would be just majority. It doesn't have to be 2/3. So this one also requires a 2/3. So white smoke means a pope has been elected. So it is not constant black smoke, just brief plumes twice daily until a decision is reached. When a pope is elected, the smoke is white, and the church bells often ring to confirm it.
All right.
So yeah, the question was this morning is that how is it constantly burning and then only a white smoke when it was selected? And so we checked it out, we confirmed. There you go. Thought I had to share that with the public
Appreciate
this
that.
afternoon.
8 days after the referendum on cannabis has passed, we learned the difference between black smoke and white smoke.
So here you go. We may have passed it here, but they're implementing it in Italy. Right?
Very clearly. Very, very clearly.
The fumata is now white. A decision has been made.
All right. Well, I thank you, Mr. Solomon, for that
No problem.
fantastic education. Again, the
Government here to help.
you know, the Netflix show gave me the broad strokes.
Right.
You gave me the finer details. So
There you go.
again, you know,
What's your other saying?
What
Put
would
a
I do
finer
with that?
point on it.
well, yeah, not to put too fine a point on it, but you certainly did.
Yeah.
Well, again, welcome to Straight Talk for this Thursday. I feel I need to remind folks the days of the week so you don't, heaven forbid, go to work on a Saturday thinking it's a Friday.
Yeah.
I'd hate to cause people to wake up early when they realize I didn't need to do this. Why is traffic so light this morning? Because it's a weekend, Bubs. It's a weekend. Yeah, today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. And as far as we're concerned, it's another open mic day. The phone lines were open, 745-2626, or you can reach out to us on our version of the 1-800 number. That is, of course, by calling our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you can either send us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. As is, I guess, somewhat our thing, we try to start off every show with some good news or positive news, and we have a number of them today, of course, starting with the biggest news, the biggest global news, as we were just discussing, that a new pope, the 267th Pope, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost of the United States, was elected today. His new pope name will be Pope Leo the 14th, and he is the first American to be elevated to the distinguished position as Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. We extend our congratulations to all Catholics across the globe who continue to celebrate this rather auspicious occasion, as it were. Yesterday, we provided updates on what took place in Parliament, specifically talking about the establishment of the various House committees, the Public Accounts Committee, the House Committee, and the two rather new select committees, one to provide oversight on the office of the Ombudsman and the Standing Select Committee on Privileges. What we didn't tell you were who the members were, outside, of course, who would be leading those respective committees. So I thought, in completeness, I thought we should, share those details with the listening audience as well. Starting, of course, with the Public Accounts Committee. Of the 6 members of that committee, 4 will come from the opposition and 2 coming from the government. From the opposition benches, independent Chris Saunders, who certainly is not new to the Public Accounts Committee, I believe serving now in his 3rd consecutive administration and 3rd consecutive Public Accounts Committee. He is joined by 3 PPM representatives, namely Roy McTaggart, Kenneth Bryan, and Roy Tatum. Roy McTaggart is also, again, returning as the chairman of that committee. And the 2 members of government will be new MP Julie Hunter and, of course, the former Premier Wayne Panton. So that is the makeup of the Public Accounts Committee.
If I could jump in to highlight something for the public, it is standard that your Public Accounts Committee, which is one of those checks and balances on the government,
yes,
in terms of government spending, etc., calling for, value, value added reports, etc.
Well, it provides accountability on spending and ensuring that value for money was in fact achieved in some of those expenditures, and when not,
right.
They obviously make certain recommendations.
Right, and then, they also work somewhat along with the audit department in terms of running all these value-add reports, etc. But it is an opposition-led committee.
It is.
So you'll always have the opposition having the majority there, and again, that's primarily to ensure that we're keeping a check and balance on the government in terms of the finances, the spending, etc.
Absolutely.
As my colleague has.
And it's also, I think, noteworthy to point out that the public spending that they do find reviewing on their respective monthly or quarterly agenda usually represents spending of the previous administration, the administration that came before. Though there have been some rare occasions where spending of current administrations fell under the purview of the Public Accounts Committee, but to your point, largely led by the opposition, inclusive of members of the government, and usually it is tradition that the opposition also would chair that committee.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. One of the issues there is timeliness with a lot of things with government, just like you talk about going into Parliament and trying to start at 10 o'clock. But basically, this opposition here in terms of PAC being offering a check and balance could call for a particular report to be done on this government at some point. And if everything was timely, you would actually get it during this administration, but sometimes that bleeds into the following. But this opposition, what I want to say, this check and balance called the Public Accounts Committee here could be calling for that to be done during this term.
That's correct. That is correct. The House Committee, which is a committee basically responsible for all matters relevant to issues impacting the House of Parliament, anything from repairs to tours to even perhaps, updating things like standing orders or other parliamentary legislative rules, will consist of three members from the government benches, Catherine Ebanks-Wilkes, Nicholas DaCosta, and Heather Bodden for the government, and Joey Hugh and Roy Tatum again from the opposition. Now, the House Committee is almost always chaired by the Speaker of the House, obviously as the head of Parliament, and in this case, that places Ezra Miller as the chairman of the House Committee, and those are the members. Then there's the Select Committee for the Oversight of the Office of the Ombudsman, which is new, I believe, in this administration, and will include new MP Julie Hunter, former MP and re-elected Minister Jay Ebanks, and the Deputy Premier, who's also a new MP, Gary Ruddy, from the National Coalition for Caymanians. And joining them from the opposition benches will include Chris Saunders and new MP Perlina McGaw-Lumsden from the opposition benches. I suspect this committee will either nominate a chairman from their own membership. I'm not quite sure how that chairmanship will be decided, or if the chairman will also come from outside the House. As it being a new select committee, I think it warrants further follow-up. And lastly,
the privilege one?
The last one is the Standing Select Committee on Privileges, which comprises all members of Parliament. And once again, presumably, it could be chaired by the Speaker, but again, they may decide to nominate one person to lead it from its numbers at their first meeting. But that is the update, obviously squaring the circle, if you will, on yesterday's update on the parliamentary committees that were established in the first meeting of the Parliament since being sworn in on Tuesday.
So what did you mention? Sorry, I may have been busy sending out something, but register of interest?
There were no
that one?
No, there were. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
No, I didn't hear it yesterday.
But that's a very important one.
It is a very important one. That and the standards in public life boards. No, I don't.
Check in on that.
We will definitely have to look into that. Thank you for reminding me.
The register of interest, I mean, unless they've done some kind of a name change and that falls up under this privilege one, but it doesn't sound like it has the right ring to it. Mm-hmm. But the register of interest, again, would be checking on what interests those members of Parliament have, business ownership, etc., all of those things being recorded to, again, look at any conflicts of interest that might be arising in terms of decision-making, etc.
Right.
Or money passing hands, God forbid.
Yeah, well, speaking of money passing hands, I mean, we certainly had an example of that under the previous administration.
Which one? There were about two or three.
Really?
Within the 4 year. Within the 4 years, yeah.
The last 4 years? I only remember the big one, $1.6 million loan between...
No, I'm not. No. I was talking about, you said under the previous administration. I said there were several different administrations.
Sorry. Previous administrations. Yeah, no. Well, there was only one big issue that came before the Standards in Public Life Committee.
Right.
And that was, of course, the financial transaction between the then Premier and his then Minister, who sat two doors down from him at a time when then Premier was embattled once again for keeping his job. Obviously referring to the $1.6 million loan that was offered up to the former minister and MP for Prospect. Nothing. That's what I was saying. The Committee for the Standards in Public Life found that there was no conflict, that there was no breaches, and everybody was allowed to carry on, albeit that I think it was, well, certainly was the former minister, Ms. Turner, not declaring it on her register of interest. And of course, Wayne Panton, I believe the decision was he wasn't obligated to declare it, which again causes rather curious question marks. Again, a sitting premier giving a sitting member of cabinet a loan of any kind, but certainly one of high volume of $1.6 million. Yeah, that is rather dubious to say the least.
Yeah.
And this was not just our opinion, it was the opinion shared by, I think, the wider population. But then the same committee who is responsible for oversight for those registers of interest, they conducted their own investigation and, again, found
Let's put it this way.
found no
Harris,
breach.
Not to call any names, but if it had been a certain person that had handed someone else $100,000,
Like $100 million.
under any reasons, I would assure you will have an issue. But,
for sure.
but
sure.
you know, speaking of that,
He would have gone to court. It would have been a whole hullabaloo.
Speaking of, yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, I mean, this does remind me that there's a couple of different things that was on the burner that I don't think we wanted to drop off. And one that came to my mind this morning was this issue with this young man where the foreign guy jumped in, into his car. Remember that one?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's sort of gone kind of
They're very
completely
quiet.
silent.
And I don't want to go quiet because
No.
I want to see what happened with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, as we remember where we left it last, the young man who was theoretically the one who was assaulted,
Right.
he was
the only one arrested.
He was the only one arrested. And of course, the police came out and defending their decision. But we, again, to your point, we haven't heard anything more on it. We haven't know whether, it's got scheduled for a court appearance or what was the outcome. Certainly worth a bit of follow-up.
But surely with the public outcry, I mean, you would have expected that there would have been something released on that.
Yes, yes. Likewise with the, the brutal death, mysterious death of, I think her name was Judy Ann Miles, who was found in a burning car in Newlands. Again, the last we heard from the police was they were waiting on the results of the coroner's report and some of the initial investigations. But that was weeks ago, if not maybe, I don't know if it's a full month yet, but it's worth looking at. But certainly that too has gone very, very quiet. And that is curious because, it just was horrible.
Speaking of this, we used to have press briefings where you could go and be asking all the relevant questions. Now, I wonder if that's going to be going on because I would like to think that questions like this as well, where the commissioner of police necessarily has to come there.
Yes.
I mean, these things really need to be answered. They should not be allowed to be dropped off from the public's attention.
No, I agree with you. And, yesterday we started an examination of the manifestos of the current National Coalition for Caymanians, reviewing what would be 5 manifestos potentially of the members, 1 for TCCP, 1 for CINP, and 3 for the 3 independents who participated. The one, I think, common ground on all of them was that they all supported greater transparency and accountability
On the crime issue.
from the government. So it would preclude the fact that, there might be a continuation of those monthly or quarterly press briefings where the government faces questions from the press. And that also includes, obviously, questions that the public would submit either vis-a-vis directly to the government or through members of the media. I would hope they continue it. Again, you can say you believe in transparency, but prove it.
Let's see what happens
in your actions. So, like you say, we'll have to wait and see. Just like we'll have to wait and see what the
we're making our
strategic
we're
policy
making our
statement
list
will
and
look
we're
like.
checking it twice.
We certainly are, and we will continue to be your gatekeepers, if you will, to provide you important updates and happenings from Parliament and the decisions taken by our new government, and we'll share those details with you. It is 56 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, and just very quickly, we see one very important first step taking place on Frank Sound Road, I think in the constituency of Minister J. Ebanks. Apparently, the speed limit on Frank Sound Road has been reduced from 50 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour, according to the National Roads Authority. In a press release, they say the reduction has taken effect along the expanse of Frank Sound Road from Bodentown Road or Seaview Road to the Botanic Road. This adjustment comes as part of ongoing efforts to improve road safety in residential and high traffic areas. The decision to reduce the speed limit follows a review of traffic patterns, accident data, and community feedback, indicating the need for safer travel speeds along the stretch of road, which is frequented by school buses, cyclists, and pedestrians. So they've dropped that speed by 10 miles per hour, and presumably it'll either have the police radar signs indicating to drivers obviously what their speed is. And there has been some talk about the inclusion of speed cameras on roads throughout the Cayman Islands, but no decision nor funding has been approved for that initiative. Obviously, that's something that we will seek to follow up on as and when it happens in Parliament. But we do have to pause and take a short commercial break. I think at the 5 o'clock hour, check in with the top of the hour BBC News, which don't be surprised if it contains more information and celebratory messages on the new Pope.
The Fumata. But I will say very quickly before we go to the break that I would like to make two comments in relation to the District of Northside. Number one,
20 seconds.
And again on the issue of Mr. J when we come back.
Excellent. Fantastic. Also, when we come back, we continue our examination on the coalition manifestos and share with you some of the similarities in them and what could be featured in the government's upcoming strategic policy statement. Keep it locked. Straight Talk continues on Bobo FM.
Bobo. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Govinda Gill with the BBC News. The Pope, Robert Prevost, has appeared before crowds at the Vatican after being elected as the new head of the Catholic Church. He's chosen the name of Leo XIV and becomes the first Pope from the United States. The news of his election emerged with white smoke billowing from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. Sarah Rainsford was watching in St. Peter's Square.
As the bells of St. Peter's rang out, tens of thousands of people began surging towards the square, some of them running. All attention then shifted away from that chimney to the balcony of the basilica itself. But it was another hour before the crowd knew which one of the cardinals had been chosen. And even when they saw the man who'd taken the name Leo XIV step out, very few seemed to realise he was an American. When they did, those who had come from the US were shocked and delighted. Others all over the world are still taking it all in.
President Trump has called the election of the first US Pope a great honour for America. The president of his adopted homeland, Peru, Dina Boluarte, said Leo's elevation to the papacy was historic.
We celebrate a historic moment for Peru and the world. The election of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, a Peruvian by choice and heart, as Pope Leo XIV. This marks not only the first time an American ascends the throne of St. Peter, but also the first time a Peruvian with over 20 years of service in our country leads the Catholic Church as Supreme Pontiff.
In other news, India says 3 military stations near the de facto international border in Indian-administered Kashmir have been targeted by Pakistani missiles and drones. It said they'd been destroyed. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif denied Islamabad's involvement. Our Pakistan correspondent Azadeh Mashiri reports.
In the Defence Minister's words, should Pakistan attack, it will be known all over the world. He insisted that the country would not strike and then simply deny it. World leaders have been urging Pakistan and India to de-escalate tensions ever since the deadly attack that killed 26 people in Indian-administered Kashmir. Delhi says Pakistan was involved, a claim Islamabad firmly denies. Mr. Asif said a call that took place between the US Secretary of State and Pakistan's Prime Minister could offer some hope, but that he feels the situation has reached a point where a breakthrough is no longer possible.
The philanthropist and Microsoft founder Bill Gates says he'll give away almost his entire fortune over the next 2 decades before closing his foundation. He's earmarked about $200 billion for global health, agriculture and education programs, but said no philanthropic organisation could make up for what he called the gulf in funding left by recent aid cuts. BBC News. President Trump has called for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Writing on his Truth Social, the US leader says he was committed to securing a lasting peace in Ukraine. Mr. Trump's message comes after he held a phone call with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Mr. Zelensky said Kyiv was ready for the ceasefire starting this minute and that it would be a real indicator of movement towards peace. There have been further attacks by the Sudanese paramilitary rapid support forces, with two young girls killed in Omdurman, twin city of the capital Khartoum. Medical agencies say several others were wounded, mostly children, in an area of the city controlled by the Sudanese army. The Turkish authorities have barred access to the social media account of Istanbul's jailed opposition mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. They say one of his tweets is under investigation for incitement to crime. He's been behind bars since March on corruption charges, which he denies. Ola Giran reports from Istanbul.
Ekrem İmamoğlu may be in jail, but he's far from silent. He's been rallying his supporters in Turkey via social media, with regular messages posted with the help of his lawyers. But the authorities here have now blocked his account. His Republican People's Party said the move showed the fear of those in power that they will be losing power. X is challenging the ban through the Turkish courts.
In football, Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United will face each other in Europa League final. Tottenham secured their place after a 2-0 win over Bodo Glimt, 5-1 on aggregate. Manchester United beat Atletico Bilbao 4-1 to go 7-1 on aggregate. Meanwhile, Chelsea are through to the UEFA Conference League final after beating Jorguaden and face Real Betis.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, including the ACT Cruise Tourism page and, of course, our own page. Straight Talk Radio Show are your key words. Welcome to more Straight Talk. The phone lines are open, 745-2626 on this Thursday, the 8th day of May, a brand new month. And
sorry, what day? What day again?
The 8th.
No, what day?
The 8th day of a brand new month.
What day? What? Thursday, you said.
Thursday, yes. Thursday. That's right.
Remind yourself.
A reminder, Thursday. Not Wednesday, Thursday. I would hate anybody to go to work on a Saturday thinking it's a Friday. But thank you for that reminder.
No problem.
You wanted to offer up some comments, either relevant to the speed reduction in Frank Sound or Minister J.E. Banks, I thought you said?
I both actually.
Perfect. Well, there you go.
Well, first of all, I want to say that North Side to me has always been such a very beautiful district.
Yes.
So I don't think it's necessary to any one particular person there. I mean, under Mr. Miller, it was impeccable. Under Mr. J. Banks, nothing different. Beautiful area, and hopefully we can have some of these less trash goers going there.
Well maintained. And to your point, I think it was the first district, under the proper terminology, to adopt a highway committee where they again had community members come out and obviously looking after Frank Sound Road and other major roads, the Queens Highway, for example, which is also in that district as well as in East End.
Yeah, so it's a very beautiful and clean district, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we want to have a competition that's going to be most beautiful district and hand out some rewards for a second and third, whatever we can do around here to encourage some cleanliness would be nice.
Not a bad idea.
But for sure, North Side, I think, wins it. And I definitely want to say on the speeding thing, I can understand why we need to reduce the speeding, because our good friend Mr. J has put a lot of speed bumps. And that in itself is a good thing too.
Yes.
Because there were people, trucking it, as we say. And I think that's a wonderful step in the right direction. And I just want to compliment on the both of them. And even prior, I'm sure, the cleanliness of Northside. And hopefully it keeps that way. And maybe encourage all of us to keep our respective districts as clean as possible. Now, what I also wanted to have from a political perspective about this, Jay, and I hope that this is not misinterpreted at all, is the fact that Mr. J.E. Banks would have ran against Mr. Miller at one point. Well, first of all, as far as I know, he used to work with Mr. Miller's committee.
I believe you're
at
correct.
one point, and then he ran against him and defeated the gentleman. And what I like to see, I mentioned that because I am
Justin Ebanks too. Just as a matter of for the record, also worked with Mr. Miller at one stage, and then this term, as well as the last, ran against him.
Right. So you have a bit of the teacher protege type of thing. And what I really admire about this, and I say this with all admiration, is as I see that Mr. Miller is now put in place as the speaker and well deserving so. I have seen so much in the past, Austin. I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, of the victimization that takes place when you lose the politics. If you think losing is bad, try 8 years of people trying to kill you and make you lose your job and everything else. And I just wanted to take my hat off again to the government, number one, and Jay also, because I don't think, in fairness, I think in many other areas that I look back in the past, the Mr. Millers of the day wouldn't have been put in that position. No way. He's my competitor.
Yes.
He could run against me tomorrow. I mean, we're going to kill that guy. And I just really want to applaud Jay, because I'm pretty sure it had to have pivoted on him in a positive way. And to see that is, in my opinion, a step away from the victimization that has plagued this country for years.
Yes.
I want to just thank him for his leadership and in terms of being able to say, I'm extending an olive branch, regardless of what it is. Here's a person that's an excellent person to be the Speaker of the House, and I'm going to encourage it and definitely won't fight against it. So it's a wonderful thing, and I hope that again continues. Just like the cleanliness of that district, I want to applaud him for what I'm actually seeing. And I think, like I said a couple of days ago, you couldn't get a better person for Speaker of the House. So congratulations to them both.
Absolutely, and I echo those sentiments. Well done. I think it was Mr. J.E. Banks who moved the motion to make Mr. Miller the Speaker.
Absolutely.
And to your point, it shows great political maturity, and it sends very positive signals across the Caymanian diaspora.
Because we know about it, Austin. I want to say this because I'm saying this on behalf of some of these candidates, and I want to highlight this to the public. Austin and I chatted about how noble it is, how honorable it is to step out and to serve your country. Understand that these people are making real sacrifices with their lives. When you consider that a lot of these people that have left their jobs, they left a job that was making them an income to jump in the ring to serve you. And many of them are not going to find it as easy to get back in a job as it was leaving it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And some candidates had to leave the job. And some employers give you a furlough to do it. Others,
most of them don't
require you to resign if you're going to run for politics. And then, it's easier to leave than it is to try to get back in after you've been unelected.
Absolutely. And
it
so
is a sacrifice.
And so I speak from experience. When you have on top of that difficulty politicians that are in the House that are doing everything they can to try to destroy you. And so, hopefully we can have just like what we're seeing with Mr. J. Banks, hopefully we can see a little bit more of that, because I definitely saw a lot of person in the race that, should be in one way or another, be able to be sitting on a board seat or doing something to help serve their country. And hopefully, get rid of this victimization that's plagued us for too many decades.
No,
I just wanted to highlight that as I
think I'm glad you did. And certainly, as we saw demonstrated today by the Pope calling for unity amongst people of the world, certainly this was, maybe the Pope echoed what the Speaker of the House, because the Speaker of the House said it first at his inauguration and or his acceptance speech, which we, replayed for you on Tuesday, where the Speaker, the Honorable Ezra Miller, also called for unity and mutual respect and decorum from all members of Parliament. It certainly is a welcome sight, and we hope that continues going forward, not only from the government side, but also from the opposition side. You talked about the cleanliness of North Side and East End, but certainly trash in general is, if I may be so bold, a major pet peeve of yours.
I hate it.
One of the things that the community look forward to at least twice a year is the annual bulk waste collection. And this 2025 bulk waste collection is about to commence next week. Normally, the bulk waste, most person will remember, happens certainly during Christmas time at the end of the year, but some changes were made at the Department of Environmental Health to move it forward earlier in the year. So the 2025 bulk waste collection, which will replace the end of the year schedule, commences in the District of Georgetown next week, the 12th of May, and will run until the 17th of May. For details on collection points, certainly the suggestion is to, if you have bulk items, to leave them at the top of the main road, and the Department of Environmental Health will come along and collect them in Georgetown from the 12th of May until the 17th of May. Then it moves to Bordentown from the 19th of May to the 24th of May, and concludes in Northside and East End on the 26th of May to the 31st of May. So if you have those spring cleaning items, particularly larger items, whether it be an old washer or dryer or whatever you have in your house, this is what they call bulk waste. Anything outside of your traditional weekly garbage, which you continue to do. Hopefully persons are separating that garbage from paper, glass, and plastics, and, engaging in some form of recycling as well. But outside of that weekly household garbage, the annual bulk waste collection begins next week. And we thought it was, again, in the public's best interest to be reminded of that and have those dates on hand. Again, it begins in Georgetown next week, the 12th of May, and ends in East End and North Side on the 31st of May. And
saying that and talking about one of my pet peeves is, again, the whole issue of trash. And I want to encourage the government, to consider, as I understand it, to be making that a ticketable offense, which I think would allow the Royal Cayman Islands Police, those stewards out there, to really deal with some of this trash issue. I think, as we talk about the broken window effect many years ago, using, was it Mr. Rudy Giuliani in New York?
Yes, the broken window.
The broken window effect, right? At the end of the day, that trash and stuff, it starts to affect everyone and how we respond to society, etc. It really needs to be dealt with, and hopefully the government will make that a ticketable offense that allows the police officers to simply go out there and say, hey, saw you throw the trash.
Yes.
Here's a $50 fine. Because my understanding is that it's now something that has to kind of go back to the office, write things up, and that might be one of the reasons that's impeding them. And as much as I don't want to make excuses for someone, in this particular case, we don't have to make an excuse, just make it easier for the RCIP to do their job.
No, absolutely. And if, to your earlier point made, I think yesterday or in one of the times we engaged in the conversation, you suggested that one of the reasons why it isn't being done with any degree of regularity is because of the paperwork involved.
Right.
Well, again, someone who was involved in your term in office with the early days of e-commerce, this is certainly another opportunity. If paperwork's the problem, well, then make this an online transaction. Just digitize the process and, get somebody's name and email address and email them a ticket, which they can then, pay via electronic transfer from their bank, which these days everybody has to have a bank account.
Right.
If you don't have a bank account, I don't know how you're surviving because everything is, done that way. But let's not get carried away on a rant.
We might go on to banking now.
We might hit banking again. It's very easy to detour on these discussions.
Hey, is that white smoke in here?
I tell you, I smell something burning. I must be thinking again. That's
Fumata, Austin, Fumata.
Fumata, that's right. Thank you, Ellio. We're practicing our Latin here in studios. Well, it is 18 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, and whilst we are enjoying each other's company and bantering away, but at the same time sharing what we believe is useful information to you, the listening audience, yesterday we committed ourselves to examine the various manifestos that make up the tripartite relationship of our new coalition, national coalition for Caymanians, as we anticipate and await the strategic policy statement, which, again, for the benefit of those in the listening audience, but particularly the new voters who recently qualified as electors, every new administration that comes in shortly after they are elected, they deliver what they call a strategic policy statement from the House of Parliament, which outlines the government's plans over the 4-year period in summary, whilst in most cases, or at least in past cases, we've had governments, I think prior to 2017, that were either of one party or the next, making their goals and aspirations very clear, going from one manifesto. And persons usually use the manifesto as a guidepost. Since 2017, we started seeing more introduction of coalition governments, which is obviously as one will call it, either a marriage of convenience or a arranged marriage, as I also heard Mr. Nicholas DaCosta call it from Cayman Brack. In any case, it is the bringing together of parties that didn't necessarily run together, but had obviously priorities of their own, which in this case now will have to be combined into a single document, which leaves a clear and concise but easy to understand direction for the government to follow for the next 4 years. We anticipate over the course of the next few weeks, the National Coalition for Caymanians will be conducting that exercise. And while we wait, we thought, well, why not do a similar exercise of our own, looking at the synergies or similarities that exist in the 5 manifestos that make up the current national coalition, one to represent each formal party or group, and then 3 to represent the independents, and see what parallels may exist. And again, on the notion that the government will decide to move forward on the things that they all mutually agree on, leaving the issues that they disagree on for debate at another time. But certainly we want to encourage the government to move forward on the things that you agree on, whether they be low-hanging fruit or whether they be more substantial legislative matters that still also require attention, that they do that first and spend as much as their first 2 years doing it as quickly as possible. And that's where the greatest benefit to the public will be.
Yeah. I'll just add in there, absolutely everything. I agree with what you're saying, Austin. I'll just throw in there for the benefit of everyone listening that obviously the government is going to have some challenges. Now that we know the financial situation really isn't that great insofar as the deficit, etc., that is clearly going to have to be a priority for the government.
Yes.
And you kind of have to get those sort of things sorted out in order to deal with some of the other issues. Not all of them will be financial. Some of those will be just simple matter of changing some legislation, etc. But specifically those on the financial side, you can see that that's a hurdle they have to pass first.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. So as we did yesterday, I think yesterday, let me just go back. We took a look at things such as the cost of living. We looked at immigration. Immigration reform was touted a lot under the election campaign just passed. Cost of living was another issue, which was obviously key in the minds of voters at the time, and certainly the politicians would have learned these things from their canvassing. And food security, three areas that there were similarities between the CCP and the CINP. Today, we're going to look at least potentially two, maybe three more, starting with housing. While the recommendations on the two manifestos that we are currently reviewing, the CCP and the CINP, while the recommendations are not identical, we can, however, see potential synergy in the proposals of both in regards to housing, which could be combined, as we say, to form part of the strategic policy statement that will be formed in the next few weeks. Let's take a look at what the TCCP, the Caymanian Community Party, had to say if elected on their housing priorities. Their manifesto states, and I quote, "We believe every citizen has the right to safe, quality housing, and every Caymanian deserves housing security. The TCCP will take bold steps to make housing more affordable and accessible, and they will achieve this by reintroducing the GGHAM, which stands for the Government Guaranteed Home Assistance Mortgage Program, which, if memory serves correct, correct me if I'm wrong, this was started by the Honorable Kurt Tibbetts, I believe, when he was leader of government business before we had the nomenclature changed to Premier. And this was designed to help eligible Caymanians qualify for a zero down payment mortgage in the purchase of their first home. They hope to reintroduce this to, again, create greater equity for home ownership amongst Caymanians.
If I could just pause you there, can you just read the first line where they were basically, it sounds like what it was saying is everyone has a right to have a home? That's a big statement.
Yes, we believe every citizen has the right to safe, quality housing, and every Caymanian deserves housing security.
Wow. So I can tell you, we read that, but that is a major statement that they're making right there.
It is. It's a powerful statement right there. And it is a statement that at least is shared in spirit by their counterpart, the CINP, who we will certainly get to in a moment. So the TCCP, first, to reintroduce the GGHAM. The second is to raise the upper price limit for stamp duty waivers to reflect today's market conditions and help more eligible first-time buyers. Again, this has been a practice that I think started most recently under the PPM administration, 2013 to 2017. It continued under the last administration. Likewise, I believe, in a private member's motion, also from the PPM. And now the CCP suggested they would also take it even a step further. We have seen those stamp duty waivers apply to housing values that have incrementally gone up. I think it started at $500,000, then it increased to $750,000, and who knows how much higher it'll go. But certainly when we look at the arbitrary nature in which housing prices or real estate market prices are set in the first place, then certainly it's very easy to see that this number may go as far as $1 million for a $1 million property, though I don't see very many first-time Caymanian homeowners being able to afford and or apply for a $1 million home. And if they do, maybe they don't necessarily need the assistance.
Right?
I'm just saying, maybe they don't, and we need to focus, obviously, on, those who perhaps, can't afford that much, but still, to your point, are entitled under the CCP's belief that every Caymanian deserves housing, which, to your point, is also a very strong statement. And the last one was to revamp the permanent residency point system to remove the award of points for property ownership while exploring the option of raising stamp duty for overseas buyers. So on the one hand, making it cheaper or less expensive for Caymanians to acquire property, but on the other hand, obviously making it more expensive, increasing the stamp duty from the traditional 7.5%, perhaps further north, for foreign buyers is a recommendation. And of course, removing the home ownership requirement as a means of points on permanent residency, which also deals with, probably one of the reasons why we see a lot of the available properties being scooped up by members of the foreign national community, largely because they can afford it, because they've got, the top paying jobs. And this, of course, removes that available housing stock, whether it be within the affordable range to the expensive range for Caymanians. So I think they're all three very positive recommendations, and we could see how they would otherwise easily be implemented and easily find their way in the strategic policy statement. We find similarities, though not identical recommendations coming from the CINP. Just very quickly, with a minute 22 left, it says the CINP will implement effective policies that will ensure all Caymanians have access to affordable housing that enhances their quality of life. So, again, being a bit more cagey and reserved with their promises, conservative, but certainly along the same lines. One of the recommendations from the CINP will be evaluate the feasibility of government issuing 30-year fixed interest rate bonds that enable government to provide long-term fixed-rate financing to local banks for the purpose of lending long-term fixed mortgages for Caymanians and the Cayman Islands. So I think both sides are thinking about how Caymanians access mortgages or funding to acquire property, but also looking at ways in which to bring down or make the property themselves affordable. So between these two recommendations, I'm sure they can find a middle ground, and it is very likely, certainly if we were in the government, these would be one of the examples that would find its way on the strategic policy statement. It is 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We have to pause, take a short commercial break, but keep it locked. It'll be about 3.5 minutes, and there'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here only on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
Visit Healthcare Pharmacy's second location in Governor Square, servicing West Bay and the 7 Mile Beach Corridor with a care and professionalism you have come to expect from Healthcare Pharmacy. Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor Square also stocks a huge selection of Hallmark and shoebox greeting cards, vitamins, sunblock, last minute, and everyday needs. To refill and transfer your prescriptions, simply WhatsApp 329-7313 or visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or drop by Monday to Saturday from 9 till 6.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
we just don't understand how you can afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shedden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. Powered by Health Services Authority. Committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over Instagram, Facebook, and, of course, YouTube. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, and the phone lines are open at 745-2626. Or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. From there, you can either send us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message, and we will add your comments to our conversation live on air. Ellio, with your permission, I have one such text having been received. It says, "Good evening, Austin and Ellio. I hope the newly elected coalition government will agree on one goal: set aside differences, swallow the pride, and exercise wisdom towards the improvement of the lives of Caymanians."
Amen to that.
Yeah, well, certainly amen to that. And again, if their new name, National Coalition for Caymanians, is any indication, and if it holds true to form, then certainly the government seem, at least in their intention, to do just that. And certainly, if that is the case, they won't have any problems with us as talk show hosts for the next 4 years. But it is as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A lot of things can change between now and the next 4 years, but we are hopeful.
And I'm going to remain optimistic.
Indeed. I certainly do remain optimistic for a number of reasons, some of which I've stated already. But certainly we are optimistic in the new administration. The election campaigning is over, so we put that ugliness to one side and we try to step forward in confidence and in unity, all Caymanians one to the other, and certainly giving our support to the new government, including, of course, the new speaker, who we are elated that in this election, that being, of course, Mr. Ezard Miller, now the Honorable Ezard Miller, Speaker of the House. Continuing our discussion on examining the manifesto and some of the similarities, obviously, that could find their way in the strategic policy statement.
I just wanted to comment very quickly because you talked about the GG Ham program. I think you said CCP would be working to reintroduce it.
That's correct. Well, that's what they promised in their manifesto.
And just to highlight, that's obviously going to take a little bit of time. Off the top of my head, that would require the government to do some negotiation with all the respective banks. Yeah. I think it used to be that government was pretty much taking the responsibility for the deposit on these mortgages. And obviously that led that you have on the books, because you have to have that on the books, like, whatever, add up all those deposits, it goes on the government books to say you may be called upon to pay X, Y, and Z. And it's going to be interesting. That takes a little bit of time. Just wanted to mention it. But I think that it did work in the past. And I highlight again that I said the things that are utilizing the finances of the country, particularly the fact that we're in a deficit, you can probably expect some delays on that, right?
Yeah. Well, you can and you can't. I mean, in this case, when it comes down to lending, remember, government has amongst its toolbox items its own bank through the Cayman Islands Development Bank. So if they can't find agreement with the rest of the retail banks in the Cayman Islands, they certainly can leverage their position against them by giving funding to the Cayman Islands Development Bank in order for them to lend for the same purposes.
Yeah, and just on that comment, I mean, I know that the government bank there, I think one of the situations there is that you always end up where if people know it's government, it gets abused. And I remember hearing some horror stories, I'm sure you've probably heard some too, where some large mortgages and nobody even made payments because, again, it's government, I don't have to pay that back.
Well, that's where the accountability factor comes in. You know, persons like to presume, for example, we refer to Cayman Islands Development Bank. There are historical context to this conversation. You know, people believe or assume that if government lends you money or creates an opportunity for you to get financing, that this is a loan you don't have to pay back.
Right.
And that only exists if the powers that be, whether it be those in the first instance at the bank, allow it to happen, and or if it is allowed to happen with the blessing of the political administration.
But we know the challenges with it. The realism of it is the fact that, you know, which one of the politicians want to be, you know, putting someone in legal issues and concerned about getting their seat back. It's a political reality.
It's a political reality, but again, you know, I think we need to also manage the public's expectations when they are dealing with our government. Again, like we often say, you know, this nonsense or this notion that, well, you know, let government build or let government pay for it. Again, guys, we say government is not a private institution, is not for profit. It earns money off of services it provides, and the money it has is public money. It's taxpayer money. It's my money, your money. So when we say let government pay for it, we're saying we'll pay for it. And when that revenue that we get from whether it be financial services or customs or tourism, when that falls and government has still perhaps, you know, other liabilities and we see a gap, if you will, then they raise taxes to make up the difference. So when we say let government pay for it, what we're really saying is I want to pay for it.
Yeah, we're going to pay for it.
You know, I'm so rich, I want to pay for it. Let government pay for it. That's not the case. And likewise, when we look at this issue, if government providing financing that perhaps local banks are reluctant to do, well, government is giving you a hand up, not a handout, a hand up, as is, I think, their job. Their responsibility is, as governments go, to create the environment in which business and, of course, the local community can thrive legitimately, but your obligations as a citizen for that access doesn't change. Because government made it possible doesn't mean it's free.
So if I can just round off what you're saying, amongst other things, by saying, if we lend you money, please pay we back.
Yes, please pay we back, because it is our money.
It's we money.
It's we money. So you're only really robbing or stealing from your fellow Caymanians. And who wants to do that? Again, drawing the comparisons in housing from the previous CCP to the CINP recommendations. Again, as we stated prior to the break, from the CNP's perspective, they're looking at recommendations such as perhaps issuing a 30-year fixed-rate bond, which will be used to provide long-term financing to local banks and or the development bank for the purposes of lending for mortgage purposes. I think it's a great idea. But it also finds itself in line with the CCP's objective of reintroducing the GGHAM.
I'll just throw in there as well, if they are based on the referendum results, if we're going to move forward in a lottery, that would be a good opportunity to use those funds for housing as well.
Absolutely. Before moving on, we decide to stick around. 745-2626 is the number. Encouraging feedback from the listening audience. Missed that call, but you can by all means try again. Moving on to the second recommendation that I think shows synergy from the CINP to the CCP. Implement initiatives to support Caymanian land ownership and housing affordability by encouraging private investment in housing projects and providing incentives for developments that include options for affordable property and housing for Caymanians. Again, you know, I think this is also along the lines, if we can't get the money from the bank, well, maybe we can get it through, you know, the P, public-private partnership.
This one is CINP.
This is CINP.
Yeah.
And then third and lastly, the recommendation from the CINP, restrict land banking by foreigners who do not reside in the Cayman Islands. Now, this is a
big one,
huge recommendation, but I think also it runs in line with the CCP's removing the, you know, land ownership from the PR requirement. So the fact that you own land does not give you more points to, you know, climb the road to Caymanian citizenship, as well as, of course, their recommendation of raising stamp duty, making it more expensive for overseas buyers. I think there could be a middle ground here, But certainly the restricting land banking would be huge for foreigners. And certainly this it does have economic implications. Let's call it what it is. We are a development-based economy, and that development doesn't always start at the point when property is purchased. In many cases, property is purchased years in advance of future large-scale development, and this is how the country makes money, not only on the point of sale purchase of that property, but then the infrastructure fees associated with the building of a major development, the duty fees on bringing in materials, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a discussion. Whilst I certainly support the restriction of land banking, it is a gutsy move for foreigners. It is a gutsy move, a huge move. But if I look at it realistically, it would have to be something that we would have to certainly want to engage, the finance department, the Honorable Financial Secretary on, yes, if necessary, even the market and the wider populace to provide some comments and opinion, because it will have economic impacts in terms of the country's revenue.
Yeah.
But again, we balance that. How much of a negative impact will it have versus the intended goal of creating more housing opportunities for Caymanians? Is it something we can risk giving away? Do we believe we'll make up that loss somewhere else?
Well, pulling it out of my hat, maybe an option is, okay, if it's a foreigner who is talking about land banking, you have a totally different pricing regime in the sense of how much tax you pay on it.
That's right. Well, let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air. Hello?
Good evening there, Austin and Ellio.
Good evening.
Mario here.
Hey, Mario. How are you?
Very good. I just enjoying your show. I listened a bit yesterday as well.
Thank you.
And you guys are really top notch. Really. I think we're blessed to have two intellectuals and former MPs on a talk show together. I think it's a good thing.
Thank you, sir. We do appreciate that.
I wish you the best in the show. I hope it lasts like this Annie Holder-Borden used to for years and years and years.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to comment on you're doing some good analysis on the manifestos of the two parties in the coalition. And I know you say you plan to get the manifestos of the independents as well to see how it all gels in.
Yes.
I've been reading through them as well, because during the campaign, the manifestos came out late by all the parties. They were very colorful and got some good content, but not enough time for people to actually digest them and hear about them. Some of the parties had their launches and they read certain parts of it, but no real analysis, like, how you're going to do things, how you're going to pay for it, that kind of thing. But
yes,
what you all are doing is, I guess, a similar exercise that the civil service and the policy analysts in the different ministries will have to do, but to put together, to gel the manifestos and then put together the strategic policy statement.
Yeah.
You guys are finding some good synergies. You're finding some areas where perhaps there could be some contradictions, but it's a good exercise. Now, the key to all of this, as you all know, with making the rubber hit the road,
yes,
is to put all this into project plans. Each of these things will have to go into a project plan in terms of what's the project, who's the champion of it, the timeline, the cost, the steps, the critical path, how you're going to measure the success of it, and how you're going to prove whether it was good or bad in terms of the outcome. So there's a lot of work to be done on all of these. Is the same thing that if one party had got the majority that had the same kind of work to be done, it's even more dynamic having to gel, probably 7 or 8 different manifestos. But I think it's good, that we're having this exercise. Hopefully at the end of the day, we have a much better outcome, and it's good for the country. But it's going to take, as will be the case for the entire term of this coalition government, a lot of give and take. Patience will have to be exercised, compromise, but leadership, and definitely you can't have 3 or 4 captains. You only have one captain.
Yes,
and that's what we need to have. But
Mario, before I let you go, I just want to ask you a question. First of all, thank you for the compliments, and certainly thank you for being a big part of any progress or useful information that we have tried to do since we've been on the air now for almost 3 months. Certainly you were very instrumental and involved, particularly in the public education aspect of the referendum on the various referendum questions, which you did on this program. So we thanked you then, but we continue to thank you now for doing so. Certainly providing a very important public service. But you mentioned and you are reading through the manifestos for the independents specifically. Regrettably, we don't always have the best of relationships with all of the candidates involved, but certainly if you have access to the manifestos specifically for the independent candidates that make up the government, I would be greatly appreciative if we can somehow perhaps, get together and get a copy of them so that we can add them to our dialogue on this point.
No, at this point, I only have the three parties, the PPM,
the CINP, and the TCCP. Right. Yeah, those are the ones that we have as well.
Right, I'm trying to get my hands on the independents. I'm curious to get Mr. Ralston's because apparently he had a very good one. I didn't get to seek to get it yet, but certainly I want to look at all of them. But yeah, I mean, I think that like just like you, I see some similarities and synergies between the two parties in the coalition at the moment.
Yes.
The Progressives had a useful manifesto. It's very colorful, and it didn't have I didn't find it had the kind of detail. I'm a kind of detailed person in a kind of policy wonk,
Ellio too.
I know you guys are too. But so definitely, like I say, I think there's a lot of tedious project management work to be done to make this thing a reality and to make it a working, living kind of tool. And hopefully they will get to that point. And also get some good people, surround yourself with good people that can actually make these things happen. It's always good to have plans, but you also got to have the execution of those plans and getting good people on boards and committees and advisors.
Agreed.
And on councils and whatnot makes all the difference, as you all know, being former MPs. So I want to just congratulate you on taking this job of analyzing these manifestos and trying to help clear a path forward. So
thank you very much for that, Mario.
Okay.
Thank you so very much for your comments, your contribution, and of course for listening in to the program. Yes, I mean, on the one hand, we present this, analysis largely for the listening audience, for the benefit of those tuning in and those within the sound of our voice. But likewise, to the point that Mr. Mario made, you have to assume that the coalition government are having these similar conversations, first with each other, and secondly with the civil service. So perhaps maybe if they also have their ears on, maybe our summary may somehow, lend assistance to the government as well. Which
you will be surprised exactly who you're enlightening here. Yeah. So I think you have a lot of voters that just simply would not have had the time. Some might not have had the interest to read. People want information in different ways as well. Some persons are satisfied to simply go, listen to the candidate, listen to the debate, never read the manifesto. I think it's something that is educational. It's very enlightening, and persons are going to sit and say, oh, now I know. I'm listening orally. I'm hearing some good things or some bad things, et cetera, and make up their minds. And I don't think it's anything different with even the members in the parliament.
No, not at all. And again, we'll state, our stated purpose or goal on this program as we thought of it when we first took to the air on the 10th of February. What makes us different from perhaps, some of the other shows, either on social media or on your radio dial, is that, our goal every day is to educate, enlighten, and elevate, the minds of those persons who have us tuned in. We want to give you something tangible, something you can chew on, something that maybe you didn't know before you tuned in, and you can walk away saying, well, I learned something today.
Focusing on issues and ideas and not on people.
That's exactly right. That's what sets us apart. I'm not saying we're going to, achieve that 100% every day, but those are the goals that we have put before ourselves when we, prepare our daily content, and that is, our intention going forward. So again, on the housing aspect, I see at least 3 or 6, if you take it in totality, areas of similarities or parallels between the CCP and the CINP that can be married to form, at least 3 salient objectives as it relates to housing. Certainly to Mr. Mario's point, there are a number of key steps that still will have to follow this. But obviously the first step is agreeing on a plan, creating a plan, agreeing what it is, and then making that roadmap, how we take that plan from paper to action.
Absolutely. And to that point, you know, one of the things naturally the government should be doing is trying to identify, using your term that you love to use, that low-lying fruit.
Yes.
There's a lot of simple things that can be done that starts to make a real difference and takes you way beyond the honeymoon stage, because people are going to really start to say, wow, you know, the government's doing something positive, because they're going to have to labor through all of these things about the deficits, et cetera. So make sure you have something to give the public.
Absolutely. You know, nothing is more encouraging from the public standpoint, like they have in the U.S., you know, the presidential first 100 days in office. These are the opportunity for incoming leaders to demonstrate to the voters that they made the right choice. And again, whether it's low-hanging fruit or otherwise, these are issues or areas that you are able to identify as a government that you can quickly bring a solution to without, you know, long, protracted, extended meetings and commissioning of reports. Some things will not be as easily solved, but the things that can be should be the ones that we address first and foremost. We do have another caller on the line. Let's go to that. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Good evening to you. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome. You were speaking just a few minutes ago about land banking and the proposal from one of the parties to basically restrict or eliminate foreign ownership going forward, at least from this PR thing. And I believe that is absolutely something that we must do. And many other countries, many other jurisdictions have had that in place forever. And I don't think any of them are as small in land mass area as we are. Now, speaking about replacing the income from those things, I think that can also be done. But for the land banking, undeveloped properties, and there's a lot in Cayman, a lot that we know about. They even have particular color fences and all of that. If they remain undeveloped, I think there should be an annual fee, like, I don't know if you want to call it a penalty, but government should be getting something annually, because there was the one-time property tax of between 7.5%, somewhere around there, and that's it. And then those people can have that land and it sits there, however it's assisting, whether it's assisting them in tax breaks from their own countries or whatever. So I think that our government, and as you pointed out, the money for the government it's all about us, isn't it?
Right.
So Caymanians should be getting some benefit, and I would propose a fairly small, we can't call it tax, you know how that goes, a fairly small fee. Yeah, let's call it a fee. And as many times as we've heard that, you can't do that because they're going to pick up and run. They're not going to pick up and run, because there's nowhere to go that you don't have to pay some form of taxation. And as much as our government hesitates to raise fees, just look at what the banks and lawyers and accounting firms, they raise fees anytime they feel like. Yeah. And they don't have to tell you. I did a small transaction yesterday at the bank. When I tell you small, $150 and it cost me $50.40 Cayman Islands dollars for that one transaction from that one bank. I had no say in whether that was a reasonable fee. I don't know how many times they've put it up, because it's never up to us, you know. So government is afraid to put up fees, but the very people that are servicing all of, the foreign investment or whatever, they put it up, I can tell you, right, left, and center. And those people don't run away from here because it's still a tax benefit. And the other way the government could get some is another annual fee on luxury properties.
Caller, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I can give you about another 60 seconds, but then I have to ask you to let us go.
I'm finished. Developed properties, luxury condos, we should be getting something annually other than that one-time transfer fee. And that's it. It could raise a lot of money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very welcome. Thank you so much for your contribution. And again, for tuning in and sharing your views as part of our ongoing conversation. A minute, 30 seconds left, Ellio.
I will just say, I think my thoughts and the caller are relatively aligned. That was what I was talking about, where I said that if you're going to allow it, you could probably get them into a somewhat different fee structure. And again, that could just simply be on duties. For example, if it's 7%, this might just simply be even a one-time fee. You're going to pay 20%. But I can tell you what, if you're saying to persons that they're not going to be able to land bank, you can also get a reverse on this, Austin. You could also get a lot more development, because you can see a foreign national who was going to buy 4 pieces of land, for example, and not going to build on it, well, right now is going to say, I'll build just to make sure I can hold it.
Yes.
You'll get a lot more development. That's another possible effect. Whether it's positive or negative, I can tell you that's a possibility.
I just want to say to the last caller, I thought all those recommendations were legitimate and seemingly, easy to implement, though I would urge only caution as it relates to adding fees to foreign investors, because as we have stated, this is a view that's not necessarily shared universal, but we believe there are challenges coming down the pipeline for financial services, which contributes over 50% to GDP. We don't want to scare away our foreign direct investment too much against the backdrop if financial services experiences the downturn that we see on, on the horizon. But it is 58 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, and we have to pause, check in once again with the BBC News. But keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
The BBC is the world's most trusted news source.
And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman.
On FM, online, and on your smart speaker.
This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Govinda Gill with the BBC News. The Pope Robert Prevost has appeared before large crowds at the Vatican after being elected as the new head of the Catholic Church. He's chosen the name of Leo XIV and becomes the first pope from the United States. He's also a citizen of Peru, where he spent years as a missionary. In his first address from the balcony above St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo's first words were, "Peace be with you all." Pope Francis's biographer, Austin Ivory, thinks the new pontiff will unite the world.
I think it's a beautiful choice, and it brings together so many different elements among the cardinals that I know, different concerns. And I think people have been saying, Prevost, if you're after somebody who can just bring it all together, create consensus, he's your man. And of course, he's made that his platform. I mean, essentially, those first words were about doing that for the world.
The news of Robert Prevost's election emerged with white smoke billowing from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. He was born nearly 70 years ago in Chicago into a family of Italian, French and Spanish origins. He went to high school at a seminary run by the Order of St. Augustine, later joining that order himself. Robert Prevost worked for years as a missionary in Peru before being made Archbishop of Chiclayo. In 2023, Pope Francis appointed him as a cardinal.
It's not, I think, coincidental that Pope Francis chose me. I've been a missionary my whole life, but I am American, and I think I do have some insights into the church in the United States.
Those who know the new pope says he strikes a balanced figure with a solid judgment and capacity to listen. Father John Lydon shared a house with him in Peru for a decade and says he's humble and down to earth.
He's a good cook, so he would cook sometimes. He would make pizza. Back in those days, you couldn't get pizza in Peru. He would make pizza for the people in the house. Very easy to live with, good sense of humor. Somebody you would sit down and have a beer with and just talk and laugh. He had a very good singing voice as well. So a lot of just very positive things, a very positive human being.
2 years ago, he was made a papal advisor on picking new bishops around the world. In other news, Pakistan has denied claims that its missiles and drones have destroyed 3 military stations in Indian-administered Kashmir. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif said if his country had attacked, everyone would know it. The Indian Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar warned that any escalation would be met with a firm response. Tensions between the two countries have been high since a militant attack that killed 26 people in Indian-administered Kashmir. BBC News. There have been further attacks by the Sudanese paramilitary rapid support forces, with 2 girls killed in Omdurman, twin city of the capital. Medical agencies say several others were wounded, mostly children. The RSF has also been targeting infrastructure, including a naval base and the airport in Port Sudan. President Trump has called for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. The US leader said on social media he was committed to securing a lasting peace. His message came after he held a phone call with Ukraine's President Zelensky. Mr. Zelensky said Kyiv was ready for the ceasefire starting this minute and that it would be a real indicator of movement towards peace. One of the world's richest men, the Microsoft founder Bill Gates, has said he will donate virtually all of his fortune before closing his foundation in 20 years. The Gates Foundation has already given $100 billion towards health and development projects and has pledged to double that. Caroline Hawley reports.
The Gates Foundation is a huge player in global health, now set to get even bigger. Bill Gates said many things would be said about him when he was gone, but he didn't want "he died rich" to be one of them. He set ambitious goals for how his money will be spent, aiming to try to eradicate malaria and measles and ensure no mother, baby or child dies of preventable causes. But he said no philanthropic organisation could make up what he called the gulf in funding left by recent aid cuts in the US, as well as the UK, France and elsewhere.
The Turkish authorities have barred access to the social media account of Istanbul's jailed opposition mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. They say one of his tweets is under investigation. Mr. İmamoğlu has been behind bars since March on corruption charges, which he denies. BBC News.
And opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. It is a wonderful discussion and got just about 24 minutes to go up here in the studio. I want to thank all those callers, and of course, I want to say a thank you to Mari who called in. Thank him for all the compliments he gave us. And speaking of persons working with the government. I noted that when Miss Julie Hunter won,
yes,
she said, Marty, we're coming to get you.
Right.
And I think that that's a good man amongst other things. He's a thinker. And again, I don't want to call the other caller, but again, the lady and she and I were aligned. I want to call her name because she didn't call it.
Yes.
But I do want to read a text. Just curious, when can the people of the Cayman Islands expect more information on how the government plans to move forward following the referendums? While I understand that the cruise port referendum did not pass, I've also heard there are pressing issues with the cargo port, including reported infractions that may require urgent attention. Can someone shed some light on this, given how vital the cargo port is to our daily lives and import needs? I would imagine the government will need to act swiftly to ensure there are no disruptions to flow of essential goods and services. And I don't know, we didn't get to that part in the manifesto, but it'll be something to look out for.
Yeah, no, I don't believe, well, I haven't seen it yet in the manifestos that I've read so far, but I haven't read all of them. I mean, again, we talked about just the CCP. It's 44 pages long. And I haven't quite been able to determine how many pages the CINP is because largely I haven't printed it out. I'm reading it online. Yeah. So obviously the individual pages don't exist online. But they're both very comprehensive. So far, I haven't heard or read any of their manifestos addressing any of the referendum questions. But certainly to the writer's point, it would be curious to know whether the National Strategic Policy will also include some direction as it relates specifically to the cannabis and the national lottery questions, which were supported by the electorate.
All I can say is, yes, I agree that the cargo is going to be an issue or is an issue and it needs to be addressed, and we'll be monitoring it, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. And again, you know, as we've stated, we accept the voters' decision on cruise. But whilst on the one hand we see progress, if not moves towards what could be a record-breaking year for stayover tourism in the Cayman Islands, by contrast, on the cruise side, we are going to be seeing, again, looking at the schedule available at caymanports.com, which gives you the monthly schedule of ship arrivals, that we are seeing a systematic decline in the number of calls. The first quarter of 2025, we see on average 6 ships per week, sometimes 5 ships. But then when we look at the second and third quarter, that average goes down to 2 to 3 ships per week. And then when we go into the fourth quarter of 2025, this may be too far forward looking because a lot of things can change between now and then. But according to the schedule that exists online now, that average drops even further.
Yeah, we see all 1 ship a week.
1 to 3 ships per week. In the fourth quarter months, we see 1 week with only 1 ship for the entire week. The following week, we see 3 ships for that week. Then, of course, the third week, we see again 1 ship for the week. So the promises that the threats that the cruise lines have made are starting to show. And again, we'll see how badly that impacts the government's revenue bottom line.
We'll be monitoring.
And we'll see, what the outcome is, from there. Because, again, we've gone through 2, possibly 3 government administrations without any new taxes being placed on the citizens, the voters of this country. We have seen at the same time inflation increase, the cost of living increase. So arguably the citizens themselves really can't take any more hits. Obviously, if revenue falls and spending continues to climb, then that has to be funded somewhere. As we state, there's no such thing as free.
Yeah, and by the way, I did see those numbers come out in the Compass in relation to the supposed increase in stayovers. And I'm getting some information that challenges that, but I'll discuss it in another program.
All right.
But it is interesting. I'm going to read that information out.
Well, then it's probably a good thing we didn't touch it today.
Yeah.
Because the universe clearly had a plan for us.
There you go.
We got to get it on the same page.
Does.
Always does, buddy. Always does. We do have a comment coming also from WhatsApp. Good day, Ellio. Good day, Austin. I just wanted to share how moved I was by our new premier's speech on Tuesday. It was heartfelt, passionate, and truly connected with the people. He spoke with sincerity and strength, acknowledging everyone, including the many volunteers who give so much to our local community. I pray that God continues to guide and bless our country under this new leadership. These are clearly challenging times around the world, and Kim Ann cannot afford to ignore the global realities we are all facing. Thank you for taking the time to share this message with your listeners. And again, I will also echo those sentiments. I thought Premier, the Honorable Andre Ebanks, delivered a fantastic speech before Parliament. I was filled with national pride and encouraged by his remarks. And if I may take it a step further, I felt his genuineness in what he was saying, what they all were saying, but certainly emanating from, the Premier carries a bit more weight, in personal feelings and, again, your confidence going forward. So I thank the listener for sharing those comments.
Well, just to say, as we say, giving the flowers while you're still alive, I definitely have a lot of respect for Andre as well, Mr. The Premier. I don't know him as well as I know his father, but first of all, I don't, as they say, I don't think the chip falls far from the block. And his father's a wonderful man, total awesome to work with him for years and known him prior to that. And so I'm expecting big things from Mr. Andre. I think that it's a really good time for him to shine and show the leadership. And like I said, I remain optimistic. Want to give the government every opportunity they can. We need to understand it's a we government again.
Yeah.
It's a we government. The election, the fighting is over. It's a we government. And we want to pray for them that they're going to do the best thing because we benefit or we lose if it doesn't happen. So wishing him the best, looking forward to his leadership over the next 4 years.
Absolutely. Turning now to the economy, and again, looking for synergies or parallels in the manifestos for both the Caymanian Community Party, or TCCP, and the CINP. The strategies relevant to the economy, much like, housing, are vastly different between the TCCP and CINP. And we expect, when we talk about some of the areas that will result in protracted negotiations, I don't believe, from what I'm reading, that the finding a common ground on the economy is going to be a short conversation. That one's going to take some time to iron out because largely both sides were very specific in their recommendations for the economy. And whilst there was, and again, our goal was to find synergy, and I think we did find synergy, there were other very legitimate recommendations, particularly from the CINP side. Again, perhaps because of the background of the members, we have, we can think of Mr. Heyman Rankin, we think of Mr. Dan Scott that made up that group, Mr. Bud Johnson, Miss Julie Hunter. These are persons with strong financial services backgrounds. So therefore, one would expect that their recommendations on the economy would be very specific.
And I think on a lot of things, and just to draw on that point, even if you go back to housing, you can see the signatures on it, and forgive me for using the sort of common parlance, but if you read what CCP would have said, for example, in relation to housing, everyone has a right to that housing.
Yeah, huge statement.
Again, a very middle statement, to liberal, and again, I don't mean that in a negative sense at this point. Whereas if you look at what CINP would have published, everyone having access to housing, you can see it's a much more conservative position.
Exactly.
And so, I can imagine as you get now on the economy. So, a bit of Mr. Scott is written all over at CINP in terms of the consulting and being very conservative.
And again,
Mr. Ruddy as well.
Likewise with the TCCP in terms of, who can buy land. Whilst the CCP, again, conservative in their approach, but suggesting we should make it more expensive for foreigners to buy land. Not saying you shouldn't buy land, we'll just make it harder or more expensive. And when you're a millionaire or a billionaire, how much is more expensive, really? And we have a lot of them in Cayman. Whereas the CINP were much more, definitive, restrict land banking, period, for anyone who doesn't reside in the Cayman Islands. Very, very strong and direct.
Absolutely. And so to your point on the issue of the economy, I would definitely expect nothing different.
Yeah. Again, on the economy, just as an example, the CINP, as I stated, because of the backgrounds of the members in that party, they didn't really propose any relevant strategies or solutions that address small or micro-sized businesses, for example. Not even entrepreneurs really factored in the CINP manifesto on the economy. Instead, they were more largely focused on our international financial services sector, keeping us competitive, but at the same token, being innovative and creating again, innovation or new ideas. As we say, we like to be first. And there were some good recommendations on the CINP side.
They're more macro then.
Exactly. None of them, exactly. Though that said, they both agreed that education is key to ensuring Caymanians can access jobs in the financial sector as well as the tech sectors. Both also agreed as it relates to public spending, committing to adhere to greater fiscal responsibility and smarter public spending disciplines. Again, it's not a question of how much you make, but how much you spend.
Right.
And as we've seen on this current administration, this is the first administration in 3 administrations where we didn't end the year in surplus, but in deficit. So this new government are going to begin with a hole of $26 million that they're going to have to fill right away. We see that, again, in the media that the spending continued in the 11th hour. Again, it's arguable what was spent. I think the government spent a further $6.5 million. One of them were in education, which, again, is hard to argue against where they chose to put the funding. But at the same token, we see also in the media things like dock workers not getting paid, their wages. Persons involved perhaps in the election campaign with some groundwork not getting paid and leaving that for the next administration to decide. So, depending on what side of the fence you fall under,
I think I heard a little bit about that. And again, I didn't have all the details of it, but one of the things that came immediately to my mind on that article is that having been one of the persons on the initiation of the cleanup program, for example, I remember being accused, he's buying votes.
Yes.
And I said, but I'm giving out shovels and rakes. And again, in defense of those persons, you can see that if some of those payments were made right before election or right after election, you'd have the same sort of accusations again, I'm sure.
Indeed. Again, sticking with the economy, both parties agreed to support the development of emerging markets, in particular the technology market. And again, this is where, again, the CINP were very specific. They recommended developing a globally competitive technology hub that will drive innovation, attract foreign investment, and develop a skilled workforce to position our nation as a leader in the global digital economy. Again, I think this is important. This is, in some cases, ahead of the curve. If we look in the U.S., for example, the House of Congress just recently voted down, just as we get used to the digital currency of cryptocurrency and whatnot, there's a new one in Bitcoin. Apparently, there's a new currency called stable coin. I don't know what that is. Only heard about it today for the first time in the U.S., but that was voted down by Congress as not being one of the areas that they will pursue. But again, it is still early days. That'll be back on the table in no time. So these are some of the innovations, particularly in tech, that both sides are looking at. I like it because it is not just a matter of keeping oil in our well-running financial services machine, keeping that engine in good working order, but also proposing ways in which to enhance it. But again, these are very specific and targeted recommendations, which I expect the government to be spending more than just today chatting about and trying to find common ground.
And as we both said, we need to invest in it, but we had Mr. Travers here on the show, and he talked about the situation, and anyone looking at the financial services has to see the constrictions, restrictions, and everything else that is occurring. And we need to strengthen it, do what we can to sustain it, but at the same time, this country needs to be looking at other sources of revenue as well, not necessarily shutting things off.
When we talk about big recommendations, huge, that have impact, there was one that jumped off the page for me for the TCCP. They said, and I quote, improve the alignment between tourism and financial services to enhance synergies, especially in business travel and conferences. Now, this is humongous. And I think, to tell you why I think it's humongous, we need to have a bit of a history lesson. There was once upon a time in the Cayman Islands where, and this is the late 90s, early 2000s, when large U.S. corporations, which, by the way, make up 90% of the overall registered companies in the Cayman Islands, a large percentage of our financial services and corporate business is from American corporations. And there is existing a law that restricts U.S. corporations from having their annual board meetings and annual general meetings in the U.S. for tax purposes. If you make the money or you earn the money in a foreign jurisdiction, you can't, have meetings in the U.S. You needed to have them in the jurisdictions where that money is either made or reported. Again, up until the 2000s, that was the Cayman Islands. And that is what we saw, things like the IMAC conferences, the Insurance Managers Annual General Meeting. Now, that created an opportunity where tourism and financial services were married to bring revenue into the country. I think we would see hundreds of top executives come in for a few days of meetings, bring their family, and spend a week of sun, sand, and fun.
And just to add to it really quickly, I remember seeing I knew several offices that were rented, never being used except for perhaps once a year.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
A lot of commerce.
That was right. Now, we changed those rules. And again, going back to, the past, between the administration of 2005 to 2009, under the Honorable Charles Clifford, who at the time was Minister of Tourism, Environment, Investment, and Commerce, he changed the legislation that basically did away with this synergy between tourism and financial services. And again, whilst we can't question the thinking of what ministers' decision-making in the past, as I understood it, this was started by a group of local lawyers lobbying the then government out of what I can only describe as greed. Whilst we talk about annual general meetings, most board of directors, most company CEOs aren't going to show up to any meeting without a lawyer. Now, at the time, lawyers who attend these AGMs or board meetings, they get free airfare, they get free hotel accommodation, they get, a per diem to spend, and an opportunity to fly off to a foreign jurisdiction. With those meetings happening in the Cayman Islands, the law firms, fraternity in the Cayman Islands didn't have this benefit. So they lobbied to change it altogether so that these meetings that were previously taking place in Cayman and generating revenue for the country, all of a sudden left. They were no longer allowed to do so, and we took it off the books, largely, cutting us off at the knees. And I can only say, again, this is an example of how individual greed gets in the way of costing this country access to potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. So if the government is serious, I would certainly hope they would perhaps examine the legislation that was amended, I think 2006, 2007. I stand to be corrected. Don't ask me what the specific legislation was. I've been racking my brain trying to remember what it was, as well as looking it up, but I can't find it. But I'm sure it will be found. But this is a terrific opportunity where we need to bring back something that was profitable for us as a jurisdiction in the past and taken away through one reason or the next, politics, but clearly needs to be corrected. And again, when you look at places like Weston, for example, we talked about this last week. The Weston is increasing their footprint. One of the things they intend to add are conference facilities. So either they see ahead of the next curve, maybe they have some information we don't, but they're certainly invested millions in their expansion project. But there is an opportunity, I think, that was once lost to us that we can acquire again.
What you're saying there is amazing. Move. What you're saying there, sorry to cut you off, but what you're saying there is absolutely amazing. I definitely remember the offices, and I know that it kind of changed and went away.
Yeah.
But I a little less than yourself, obviously, don't have the full historical context, but I can tell you these are the sort of things that happen that somebody needs to do a good value for money on that one, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the ramifications of that particular legislative change is huge. It's humongous.
Like we said, there are
where's the math on that one?
To the decisions that were made, and sometimes those, consequences we didn't think about, but they do have a massive impact. Certainly the decision taken in the early 2000s really cost us millions.
You don't have to do a half-day schooling on Fridays in finance to know that I'm going to stop all these people traveling, renting places. Come on, somebody had to see that.
Yeah.
And if somebody's saying you're really going to do that just so that a couple of local lawyers can fly off, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not good decisions on behalf of the country, I would think.
Not at all. Not at all. And again, we don't know, I don't know the specifics of the lobbying, but this is a fact. Everything I've just told you are facts. Again, using the TCCP recommendation of improving the alignment between tourism and financial services, this is certainly one of those areas which that can be achieved. So again, there are parallels on the economy side, just like there are parallels on the housing side. Some conversations are going to be harder. Some decisions are going to take longer. But nonetheless, there are opportunities for low-hanging fruit, things that they can agree on, and, you know, counting on the government to be responsible enough to start with those and then work on the ones that they don't agree on over the course of the next 4 years. It's 27 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We're running out of time. Got about a minute 30 left. We talked about at the beginning of the week the new queen in the Cayman Islands,
That's right.
a resurgence of the Miss Cayman Islands organization through the crowning of the Miss Earth Cayman Islands. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we are going to have the privilege of our new queen, Miss Letitia Bush, will be our guest in studios at 5 o'clock. So we're going to learn a bit more about the
got a
franchise.
sparkle in your eyes, Austin.
Oh, my God, she's beautiful. Have you seen the pictures? She's gorgeous. So anytime we have a beautiful woman in studios, my eyes light up naturally.
One thing you possibly like more than as a cold front. Oh, well, boy, love a cold front.
Both are not, mutually exclusive, I would just add. But certainly tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we will hear from Miss Earth Cayman Islands as our guest, but we will also have an opportunity to continue our discussion on the parallels of existing manifestos. With 28 seconds remaining.
You know what I got to say? Don't forget, Sunday is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to my wife, my mother, and of course to yours, Austin, everyone else's. I'm just saying it because I don't want to forget. I don't want you to forget either.
Well, that's a good point. And with tomorrow being Friday, if you want to order those flowers from Mom, you want to get it in tomorrow.
That's the deadline, right?
That's your deadline. So there you go. Useful information that is relevant and applies to your daily life. Do this again tomorrow for more Straight Talk.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Robo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.